Today we're here with Jay Waterbury and Andy for our interview with Jay. And we are excited to hear what Jay's been doing over the last 51, I guess, years. We are doing this in anticipation of our 50th reunion, which theoretically would have been last year. But as everyone experienced in 2020, we didn't get to do our reunion. And so we're going to do it this year on September 18th and 19th. And we have a website that you can register for. It's not to register for the events, but just to get information for the events. And it is southsalem70.com. And Andy, if you want to just take it away and introduce Jay.
Okay, Jay, it's a pleasure to see you again. I think the last time we visited was over lunch at the 40th. And I learned at that time that you were a chief of police. So how the hell did you get from Salem, Oregon, class of 1970 to the Dalles battling the Rajneeshis? What on earth were you thinking of?
Well, 50 years later, I'm still wondering that myself. We graduated from school, and life went on. I spent my last summer working at Stokely Van Camp down in Albany, and ended up going down to Southern Oregon College, which down there I majored in, I guess a lot of partying, probably too much.
Yeah, that was the party school, right?
That was the party school. But, 4 years later, I graduated with a bachelor's degree in criminology, and ended up, I married a gal named Vicki Stevenson from Lincoln City, went to Taft High School. And so we took the first job offer that came up and packed up the U-Haul and moved to a place called Vail, Oregon, of which neither one of us had ever been to. I'm sure it's a nice place, and we didn't really fit in too well.
What's the population of Vail?
The population of Vail at the time was 1,700. It's the county seat.
I don't believe it's changed much.
Probably not. I think we've been back once, and that's about it. But I remember I was down in Medford working a security job when the chief from Vail called, wanted to know if I wanted the position. And I said yes, and he said, okay, head on over here. So we did. I called my wife on the phone and I said, I got a job. And she said, where? I said, Vail. And she said, where's that? And I said, well, I'm not sure, but I think it's around Bend somewhere. And she said, well, that's a nice area. And so I got a map out. I looked all over Bend. I couldn't find it anywhere. And I finally found it. And I told her on the phone, I says, I found it. And she said, where is it? And I said, it looks to be about a half inch away from Idaho. So, and that'd be 1974, towards the end of the hippie era. I had long hair. My wife had long dresses with big flowers. We got over there, and the chief was a retired Marine, buzz cut. And he took me down the street, shoved me in a barber chair. And he said, Frank, cut that blankety blank stuff off.
Gee, you're right back in high school.
Oh, it was worse than that.
Oh gosh.
It was a 4-man department, and we did 24-hour patrol. Learned by experience. Nowadays, before when you hire a new policeman, he's out there 6, 7, 8 months before he is ever in a patrol car by himself. And I rode with the swing shift guy for 2 nights, the graveyard guy for 1 night, and I was graveyard.
Wow.
Yeah, it was quite an experience. I learned by a lot of mistakes, but it was a learning experience. And we were a long ways away from anywhere. We had no friends. So my wife and I had been married, about 4 or 5 months, and we became friends. And I think it was earlier this month we celebrated our 47th anniversary.
Wow! Congratulations.
So we were in Vail for 10 or 11 months, and then an opening came up in the Dalles, and we ended up coming over here in 1975. And I took that position, and the years went by.
And
I
you
worked there.
eventually became the chief of police, didn't you, in the Dalles?
Yes, I was there about 20 years, and I'd worked my way up through the ranks and was captain. In 1996. I was appointed chief of police, and I retired from that position 20 years later in 2016.
So you
So-
were there during all the Rajneesh uproar, is that right?
Yes, the Rajneesh, wasn't what we call a real fun time for law enforcement. I had met, well, not really. I was not close friends with Ma and Sheela, but I had run into her several times during various going-ons in the courthouse. She's just a nasty lady.
Yes, she did seem very unpleasant.
Yeah, she could teach a sailor lots of new words.
Wow.
I never met the Bhagwan, but we had different issues with the Rajneesh in the Dalles, even though there were Rajneesh Piram was about 2 hours away from us down in South County.
Right.
But I was working the day they burned down or tried to burn down our planning office, and then when their whole purpose was trying to take over the county government.
Right.
And that's when they brought in all the homeless from around the country. And they also poisoned the salad bars and all the restaurants. And my wife got sick from it. But the whole purpose from this was to keep people away, or local people away from the voting booths at the time. And the Secretary of State, so shortly before the vote, declared the homeless down there ineligible to vote. They didn't meet residency requirements. So I remember working one day as a new sergeant, and all of a sudden the buses came up and they dumped a couple thousand people downtown in the Dalles, and they dumped a couple thousand more in downtown Madras, and because they had no use for these people anymore.
Wow.
So if it wasn't for the Red Cross and Salvation Army, we would have been sunk, because they bought tickets for all these people, bus tickets back to where they came from, as far as the East Coast.
Wow.
But that was the first bioterrorism incident in the United States.
Interesting. And so who investigated that? The
It was
bioterrorism?
Well, it was investigated by a combination of local law enforcement and, sheriff's office, state police, FBI, and they eventually went away.
Yeah. That had to be quite a time. About how long did they actually occupy that area in Antelope?
Probably from about 80 or 81 through 85, I believe, maybe
So,
86.
A number of years.
Yes.
That had to be a pretty traumatic time.
Yes. But, if you have anybody ever has a chance, it was bought by the Washington Trust out of Montana, and it's now Young Life. And it's a wonderful place for kids during the summer.
So it's eventually became a positive.
Very, very much a
event.
positive place.
Well, that's good. But boy, I'm sure that was a difficult time. I just recently watched the special called Wild Wild Country on Netflix, and it was really eye-opening. I didn't realize how extensive the problem was. Even being in Portland, which was fairly close, we heard a lot about it, and we saw, Rajneesh were on the streets and at the airport and, around, but not to the extent that they were where you lived.
Yeah. Well, and it was our feeling here that Netflix documentary was slanted in favor of the Rajneesh.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
Wow.
But if you get a chance, you should also watch that the Wild Wild Country spoof by Saturday Night Live. It's just absolutely hilarious. But I also have to say that once I retired, I took a very, very part-time position with the sheriff's office as a forest patrol deputy. And one day the sheriff sent me down to Antelope for some sort of call. And on that Wild Wild Country documentary, you used to see a person, he was part of the Antelope city government, I think, but he was kind of older, rather large man, always wore bib overalls. I don't know if you can remember seeing him, but I think it was 2 years ago when I was down there in Antelope. I was looking for an address or something, and there he is, walking down the street. So he's still there. And we
Oh,
talked.
that they interviewed quite a few times.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Oh, well, that's great.
So it was interesting conversation.
Yeah.
I still remember seeing truckloads of Rolls-Royce automobiles being driven along the Columbia River, leaving Antelope. That
Mhm.
went on for weeks, if not months. There'd be, half a dozen at a time going
Yeah.
down the highway.
The Bhagwan supposedly had 100 of them down there. Drove a different one every day, is what we were told.
Yeah, he was really enlightened. If that's what enlightenment is.
Yeah, well, it's good that he's not here anymore.
Yeah.
It's
Well-
a sad part of the history in Wasco County.
Well, you mentioned another amusing episode to me one time about a newspaper that called you for an interview. The National Enquirer.
Oh, the National Enquirer. Yes, how many people can say their name is in the National Enquirer? It just so happens whoever happens to answer the phone or be handy. But we did have an incident where a lady was in a parking lot and she had gotten in her minivan and she started it up. Somehow her door fell open. She fell out. The minivan, I don't know if the wheel locked or what, but it went around in a circle and ran over her 3 times.
I mean, was she badly injured?
She wasn't badly injured, but she got a ambulance right out of it. And I'm not sure what her condition is now. This was back in could be around the same time, sometime in the 80s. But I remember the secretary telling me there's somebody from the National Enquirer. And I said, yeah, right. And so I picked it up, and it was, and they had heard about this. So I told them what had happened. And so they said, so you would describe that as the van from hell?
Oh my gosh.
And I sat there and I thought, and I said, well, I suppose you could. And they said, okay, that's good enough. So there was this story in the National Enquirer about the van from hell. And the
Police
quotes
chief
from,
describes the van from hell.
yeah, I wasn't the chief then, but yeah, it gave my name. And,
Oh, that's great.
it's just the position of chief, you get a lot of things. And actually, when I became chief, I discovered that police work was no longer that much fun anymore. But, sometimes you have to take the good with the bad. And when I retired, secretary called and said, Kate Brown's on the phone for you. And I said, the only Kate Brown I know is the governor, and she wouldn't be calling me. And she said, well, that's who this person says she is. Well, so I looked across the hallway at my captain, who was a big jokester, and he's always set things like this up. And because I knew he had done that. And so I picked it up and I said, I don't know who you are, but this is my last day. I've got a lot of work to do, and I don't really care to sit here and shoot the what with you today, because I got other things to do. And all the time I'm giving eyeballs to the captain across the hallway, and he's just working away. And I finally looked down at my phone. Phone's got a little window on there that say where the call's coming from, and it said Salem, Oregon.
Uh-oh.
And I said, oh no. I says, ma'am, where are you calling from? She said, I'm sitting at my desk in Salem. And I turned beet red. I felt so bad. It was terrible. But she actually thought it was funny.
She was calling to congratulate you on your retirement.
Yes, she was.
Oh my gosh. Oh my
Yeah.
gosh.
But I basically told her where to stick it, and that was she was nice to me. So
Uh-oh. Well, good try.
Yeah.
Well, it sounds like it was meant to be a very nice event and turned out probably nice anyway.
yes, it did. Yeah.
Yeah. And you told me another story about some fire that had a pig in it or something? A pot-bellied pig?
Oh, the potbelly pig. We apparently had a fire up here one day, and a house fire, and there was a potbelly pig in there, and one of the officers caught the pig and gave it mouth to nose. And the pig survived. But there was a animal rescue show or pet rescue show on TV for a period of time, and they came up and wanted to do a story on that. So the camera crews came up and they found the house and, made smoke and all that kind of stuff. And
Oh, so,
filmed the officer, going around catching the pig. And so, I guess that was fine.
mhm.
But about a month or so later, I don't remember how long, they called and they said, we have to reshoot part of this and we need to have the officer because we missed this part. And I said, well, that officer no longer works for us. And they said, well, can we get him? And I said, well, he's working for an agency up in Portland, Washington. And so they said, well, we need somebody. And they asked how big I was. And I said, are you about the same size as the officer? And I said, yeah. And they said, well, we'll use you. And so they came up and they said, what you need to do is we're going to follow you, but you need to run around the house like you're chasing the pig. And
Oh my gosh.
it's just going to be a body shot. It's just going to be the back of you. And so I guess I got on TV of the back of me anyway, running around the house trying to catch the so-called pig. The pig wasn't even there that day.
Chasing the phantom pot-bellied pig.
That's right.
Oh my
Yes.
gosh, that is so great. Well, it sounds like you had a lot of fun times. I don't know if you had some difficult times too. Did you ever have to discharge your weapon as a officer?
No, well, there was an injured animal once that I had to put down, but no, I never did. And I'm proud to say that I didn't. And even throughout the reserve work I'm doing for the sheriff's office, I hope that I will never have to do that.
Well, that's good news.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So are you still doing reserve work then?
Yes, I am. Matter of fact, I
Great.
think I'm going out tomorrow or the next day. It's usually the campgrounds up in Wasco County on Knothood National Forest.
Yeah.
So go out and drive around the woods for a day.
Well, they're lucky to have someone so experienced.
Well, they couldn't find anybody.
I'm sure that's not true. I'm sure that's not true. Well, thank you so much, Jay, for joining us this evening. And we look forward to seeing you at the reunion, which is going to be again September 18th and 19th in Salem at Gilgamesh Brew Pub and Willamette Valley Vineyards. And people can get that information at southsalem70.com. Thank you so much.
It's been good talking to you and I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah,
Okay.
thanks for sharing.
See you
Okay.
soon.
Bye.
Bye-bye.